I'm going to go about this in a roundabout way because I want to talk about some of the trellis thoughts that I want to say before I go on to how to manage the top. You put in a Cadillac trellis, and I commend you for that. Generally, most growers try to cheapen it a little bit. The things that you've done right are put in relatively tall posts. The second thing you've done right is not space the posts too far apart. We generally don't want any more than 30 feet, and this is a place where I have personally led some people down the wrong path because we started out saying 50 to 60 feet, then we had some hurricanes come through and blew over trellis, so we went to 40 feet. But the most recent designs we've been pushing for the last 10 years basically say 30 to 35 feet. So what is the spacing of your inline posts?
Between the posts? Yeah. Generally around 30 to 35, depending on.
So you've done exactly what we suggest, and this trellis stands up well to relatively high winds. The second point though is, what's the length of those posts?
14 to start with, they're 3 foot in the ground.
That's a little bit higher than what we often will use. I don't have any complaint against it. But we're generally going 12-foot posts, putting in 2.5 in the ground, so that the top wire is 9.5 feet. Generally, if we go 9.5 feet to support the leader, we want to grow 11. The last 1.5 feet is above the wire. In this case, your wire is a little bit higher than ours, but that's okay. It's just a little more expensive post that you're putting in the ground. The last point is the problem of one staple coming loose in hurricane winds. We always staple on the upwind side. My point is that the top wire needs to be attached better than just a single staple, because if the wind generally comes from one direction, you put the staple on the upwind side, but for hurricanes, we often get the reverse rotation, at least in the northern part in New York, and the wind will come from the opposite direction and pull that staple off, and the whole row goes down. So we've gone to one of two steps, doing what you've done, weaving it back and forth, or drilling only the top wire through the post for particularly hurricane situations. 30-foot inline distance, drilling the top hole for the top wire, and then having excellent anchors to help us in these very high wind situations. But if you drill near the top, the copper chromium arsenate penetrates on the end of the post, so the entire end of the post in like 8 to 10 inches has treatment. So that part of a drilling is drilling through only treated wood. When you drill down in here, sometimes this wood isn't treated in the middle, like you said. But so I generally do just the top wire. But I wanted to make those few comments about trellis design and tell the group that I really commend you for putting up an excellent trellis. The design of this is really great and it looks fabulous. Now let's go back to the question about what to do when the trees hit the top wire. I'm a firm believer in doing nothing for at least 2 years. So these trees have now exceeded the height of the top wire, but luckily for us, you didn't head them last year. The basic point is, do nothing for a couple years until we have a tremendous amount of fruit up there. I want to make this point. Trees generally grow medium amount the first year. The second year, once the root's been in the ground for a year, they grow the most. And then as they start to crop, in year 3, they slow down. Year 4, they have less. In year 5, they have less. Let's see if that can be the case here. The first tree. This is how tall it was when it came from the nursery, so this M7 gave you a much bigger tree. They grew like gangbusters the first year.
It was a good feathered tree.
It grew all the way up to here the first year. Now the second year, it grew longer than these loppers. The first year. Is the second year more than the first year? Because the second year grew up to where the spurs stopped. Probably a little more. But now the third year, did it grow as much as the second year? Starting to slow down. Now this year, even with no crop, that's a natural thing. They'll start to slow down. So now this year it will grow even less. Some of them grew only 6 inches up there. But nevertheless, the idea being, you have that working in your favor. The second thing is, once you can get a lot of fruit up there, they start to utilize all the carbohydrate and nitrogen resources from the root, so there's much less to grow into shoots. If you cut up there before there's fruit, the tree responds again, and then we grow a lot again. If you wait till there's fruit up there to make that cut, the fruit basically use everything up, and there's not much left to regrow vigorous shoots. So last year, if you made that cut, the tree would have grown and responded. This year, with the numbers of spurs that we have up there, and assuming you don't get a spring frost, and assuming you set that crop, it would be a great year to go up there at whatever one of those spurs you want to choose, up near the end of those spurs, and cut to a little side shoot.
In the dormant season or after fruit set?
If you have a frost problem, if you're in New York where it never freezes except 2012, you can make it in the wintertime because it's going to set a crop. If it's someplace that maybe you have more regular frost, I'd wait till I know there's apples up there before I make that cut. If I didn't have any apples, I wouldn't touch it. I'd just leave it alone another year. And you could still just leave it alone for another year. The shading that we get from having a too tall of a tree comes from when that upper part starts spreading in width. Then we start to shade. And so the rule that you said earlier, about 90% of the row spacing is the one that we like. So if there's 14-foot rows, 90 feet is about 13 feet. 90% is 13 feet, so that'd be perfect height. But if for the first 1 or 2 years it goes at 15 feet, who cares? So be lazy. Don't do anything.
What would be wrong if Wayne did nothing this winter, assuming he had a crop of apples, let them basically crop and flop?
There's nothing wrong with that except for 20% of the leaders end up breaking. So that's one of the reasons.
Break with fruit on
With fruit, too much
fruit. A whole
fruit.
lot better for the tree than a cut.
Perfect. So this is the best solution. If you could do this, Wayne, you know, I'm giving you lots of jobs here. Don't do anything in the top. I'm going to prune the bottom because these need some work. Don't do anything in the top. Wait and set a crop. Then if there's a heavy crop, come through with your brand new platform you're going to get, and just have your guys go through there and lighten up that top above the wire so it won't break. It's another beautiful thing about this whole complex of ideas. You can go through an orchard like this with a motorized platform, self-steering, relatively few hours per acre, and fix whatever crop load up there in the top you need. We got a plan?
That works. Sounds good to me.
Okay. This is the other extreme. Honeycrisp was so easy. We'd identify 1 or 2 branches and we take them out. We're going to apply that same rule here, but we're going to have to do a little more detail in this columnarizing or simplifying process that we're going to do in a minute. So, you want to get on your side? We're going to try to do the same thing. We'll walk you through my mental thinking. He might have to do most of the cutting. From here, which is the biggest branch on that tree? So, out. We're going to take off at least one. Okay, is there another branch on that tree that really offends anybody?
Let's look at
Down up there with Steve.
Okay, is that one past my 3/4? Just on the verge. So let's say we're going to keep it. Let's just do, if we can get away with it, one.
How about this one where it broke off and you can cut all this new growth?
That one's kind of offensive. So what are we going to do with that? Let's grow a new one there. So we, with one cut, go ahead, we can get rid of all that growth and open up that tree. Now let's go forward and let's just try to columnarize or simplify each one of the remaining branches. So on this particular branch, if I want to cut off that side finger or side branch, I can leave one little spur right there. That's no problem. These don't necessarily count. I come out here to this Y and I have to decide, do I like this side or do I like that side? They're both good. This one's got a lot of spurs, might be a little low. This one's come more to the tractor, who cares? It's almost, I got to stop and tell my story. There's big problems and there's little problems in the world. The big problems are world hunger, poverty, war. Little problems are which of those 2 branches to take off. So don't sweat it, just cut one off, it doesn't matter. Okay, so, you doing your side? What are we going to do about this branch? You keep working, I'll just keep talking. This one is kind of interesting because we've got a nice little spurred up piece right here with not many side branches, and this one kind of went crazy. I got all these, I'm going to have to make a lot of cuts. If I keep that side, I've got to cut off that one, I've got to cut off that one, and come out here to the end. If I simply make one cut there, because I got to take off one of these 2. This is really the side branch, but it almost doesn't matter which one I take off. If I take off this side and that, I've got just this nice little weak thing out here. So we've got that, we've got this. Yeah, I might simplify that up a little bit. Take off that one.
You don't like the ones that shoot straight up too much.
No.
Those got to go.
Always, yeah. I might not have verbalized that real well, but that's exactly what I'm doing. Okay, Steve, we just have one left here in the middle of the tree. Take off the two on your side. Okay, nothing in the top, just leave it. We have now opened this up. It's a pretty thick tree. Now, Goldrush is not a red variety, so we don't have to have a lot of color on it. So if this was a red variety, this is critical, but on a yellow-green variety, not so critical. But still, it is important to try to reduce the number of buds, but still leave enough.
Those were rubby.
Yeah, what did I say about big problems and little problems? Little, who cares? We could take care of it, but it's not so. And this is the beauty of a platform again. You put a guy up there on a platform, he has how many seconds? 5 seconds to think about it. If he doesn't get it done, he's got to worry about the next tree and the next tree. And it just prevents people from over pruning. So that's a beautiful tree now. We can make every one of these the same. We go up to it and say, which is the worst branch? You know, probably going to be this whole ball of branches. Here we might have to take out 2. Is this my worst problem, or is this all my worst problem? I'm going to say this is all my worst problems. It's shading the whole bottom part of the tree. So I'm going to ignore this problem for another year, another 2 years, 3 years. I'm going to work up here and try to get rid of that. So how will I fix this? I'll show you in just a minute. Let's go ahead and take out a couple here. I'm going to take out this one. You got any big ones on your side? Okay, let's just simplify a few branches. I don't like this one here. Okay, what am I going to do about this branch? It's too low. If I leave all those spurs, it'll be just down in the dirt. It's just too thick. So simplifying and then lifting up a little bit, pruning up, is really the way to go. So it's all sort of an artist thing. I want to take off some of these side branches, but not all of them. And then I want to come out to a certain point and cut off the most downward portion. And we can maybe do that right there. And leave this some of this, lighten it up. Still got some buds on it, but it's hopefully not going to be down in the dirt. What am I going to do about this guy? He's coming straight out. This is why you want 14 feet. But once this is gone, it won't be the problem. Now, I already made the decision. I already taken out several, so I got to do it next year.
Would you tip it back?
No, you can. You can do this. That's columnarizing. But remember, this is probably going to be gone in a year. So you can start to see it open. Well, we forgot a branch over here. Let's fix this part here. Yeah, let's bring him back up. That tree's a lot more open now. It's sort of narrowed up. You get this idea, they start out a little wider and then you start working out a few limbs and pretty soon you got this really narrow hedgerow, fruiting wall.
Going back in that tree there, would you do something yet?
No, I'd leave it. It's pretty well columnarized. I might take off 1 or 2 of the side ones. You could shorten it, but why? It's really high enough that even this thing came all the way down there, you still have beautiful apples on the end of it. In fact, there's a lot of people that do the Solax system that start branches at my eye level or even higher, and they'll bring down fruit all the way to the ground. And it works beautifully. Calms the tree. And for M7, this is a mistake, but that's the kind of thing you're going to want. You're going to want to have branches like this that are extremely long. They'll just carry a lot of apples. That calms the tree down really well. The only reason I cut this one back is it's out in the tractor alley. And the only reason I cut this one back is it's down in the ground. Exactly. That leads to this one last point. Maybe not the last point, but an important point. That if you look at this tree and this tree, we've cut, but very few times have we changed the internal architecture of a branch. We've left the tips on them, so there's very little tip, almost no tipping. We've left pretty much the way they grow. That allows this kind of character to develop where branches, like this darn thing sticking way, way out here, that might even end up on the ground, but I'd rather just leave it than cut it back. So this idea of relatively long pruning is very, very helpful to calming trees down. Now on our platform, we're not going to, or on the ground, we're not going to move as fast here as we're going to do on the Honeycrisp, but this is just a whole different ball game. The answer here is get the more dwarfing rootstocks.
This has been a production of BRCC TV, the education channel, in conjunction with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension, empowering people, providing solutions.